So I was just watching a video about how Ayesha Curry just spoke out about how, she's approaching 40 and she feels like she just kind of looked up and realized that her entire adulthood is pretty much boiling down to belonging to other people. Like, she doesn't really have an independence to herself. She's really just Stephen Curry's wife and mother to his children. And I feel like the quiet part that people aren't necessarily saying out loud is that a lot of grandmas have been trying to say to you without saying to you that it is incredibly important for women to spend their especially early 20s focusing on themselves. Like, I would even argue into your 30s, focus on yourself, mamas, because you want to have a strong and confident, sound and solid idea of who you are. You want to have an identity. You want to be a person, right? And that's just simply not how girls are socialized. Like, girls are socialized to want to be wives and want to be moms and want to be housekeepers and make a family and all these things. And not to say that men aren't socialized that way too, but
Housekeepers?
men get to have that time of exploration focusing on themselves, right? And that's where they get to enter into relationships where women are taking care of them fully, 100%, full on, like a mom would. And women don't get that. That is just often not the case. And so, I don't know, I just feel like that's the quiet part that the grandmas have been trying to tell you is
It's so funny that we're having a conversation, and the jump off point for this is Ayesha Curry, right? Who is arguably married to the most famous basketball player currently still playing in the NBA. Now, I know some people will say that that title probably goes to LeBron James, and that's probably true. But this is not a Steph Curry versus a LeBron James conversation, nor is this a conversation to tear down Ayesha Curry, because I actually think that, she doesn't seem like she's doing anything wild or whatever or anything like that. But because you are a public figure and you continue to go on podcasts and have your opinion, then that is what then generates certain conversations and so on and so forth. But with that being said, let me ask y'all a question. What is wrong with being taken care of and being a wife? Why do y'all have to find yourselves at 40? I actually believe that the true midlife crisis is applicable to women at 40, because I am seeing more and more videos and more women, including a video that I did of a woman that said that she was looking for her husband, now ex-husband, who she was with for 17, married for 17, I believe, with him for 21. Now she's 40, and she's saying that she was looking for him to be the villain so that she can figure out or try to divorce him. And I believe that it's a tale of whataboutism, and then also trying to figure out whether or not you're missing out on something. And they're cloaking it in a whole idea of you need to find yourself and find your identity. So let's explore what she said, for example, at its surface. Let's say Ayesha Curry, who was the person that she's using as the basis for her argument, decided to explore and figure out herself and find herself, which I largely believe that's just an opportunity for you to sleep around, get a bunch of trauma bonds, have a bunch of dudes bust you down, possibly get some STDs, and have some children out of wedlock. But, that's just what the statistics are telling me, that that's what's happening out here in society. And then you can't be with the guy that you're supposed to be with because you actually passed up on a guy that you were supposed to be with, right? So now let's remove Steph Curry out of the conversation, and let's say it's just Ayesha. You are the girl that I never. Let's just say it's just Ayesha now, right? Cool. Do you think that Ayesha is in a better space had she stuck with Steph early, or if she'd have went over and did her own thing and went and found herself and then waited until her late 30s, because she said explore your 20s, maybe even your 30s, late 30s, maybe 40s, to then evaluate if she wanted to get married and then have children and then be with a guy. Do you see how crazy that sounds? But even women who are quote unquote educated, because I can't say that I'm as educated, I'm a C student. I'm just lucky I fell through the cracks. I just so happen to be successful. But even the women with PhDs and that are super educated, for some reason, they just can't fathom. And I don't know if it's because they're in the situation to where, what Ayesha Curry would have been like had she not been with Steph or what. But then they keep trying to say in our mothers and our grandmothers. I don't think that there's any situation where you can find women that are truly happy with their circumstance. If you get married early and you get with a rich man and you have a phenomenal family and all of this stuff, they're going to complain about the fact that guys are not seeking them out and that they're not hitting them up in their DMs. And then if they out there for the streets, and then I say, hey, you probably passed up on a guy that you're supposed to be with. How many of y'all, and I've done multiple different conversations in person and in the panels and online where I said, hey, how many of y'all probably passed up on the guy that you were supposed to be with? And every single time, all of them probably raise their hand, which means that the guy that they are currently with is not even the person that is best for them, and it's not even their first choice. But because they wanted to find themselves, which is all of those things that I previously just named, you miss out on your blessing. But here's the bigger question that I have for you guys. Again, what is wrong with being a wife? Because she started this thing off by saying that her identity is totally tied up in being Steph Curry's wife. I thought that y'all were helpmeets. That is literally what God created you to be. And then you get the beneficiary of all of the blessings. You don't have to suffer. You ain't got to be out here getting buzzed down. You ain't got to be a single mother. You ain't got to do this. You ain't got to be crying on the internet about life is so hard. You know what I'm saying? You get to actually get the spoils of Steph Curry's work ethic and dedication, and you get blessed as a result of it. So why is that a problem? Why is that an issue? Why are you guys trying to say, because I believe that a lot of these bitter grandmothers embodied the same cantankerous spirit as Eve and as some of these women that's currently out here today. And I don't think that you can please them. You know what I'm saying? So now what guys are doing is they're pulling back and they saying, you know what? This may not be beneficial for me. This may not be something that I want to get into. I'm never going to be appreciated. And I'm more fearful of divorce than I am of being in a successful relationship, because we continue to have these conversations about how women are not happy and satisfied about the state that they're in, even when you are married to possibly a billionaire that seems like the nicest guy on earth, that has never had a scandal and never had a problem. You still want to try and find yourself because your identity is tied up with being associated with him, as though that's a bad thing. Even Tony Yayo is cool with his identity being directly tied to 50 because he can appreciate the things that 50 has done for him and the opportunities that's being presented to him as a result of attaching himself to somebody that's the superstar. Why can't you play your role? What is so problematic about you playing your role? What is the issue? And why are women always with this spirit to where they just cannot ever be appreciative and just leave it at that? You got to find yourself. You got to deep dive into yourself. You got to do all of these things that would basically have been your blessing that God had for you had you just really followed direction and been obedient. Let me know what y'all think inside of the comments. Make sure y'all tap into the Patreon. Link is in the description. Tease Hanley, 40% off your first order, 20% off of life. I always like to link back to the content creator regardless of whether I agree or not. So that link is going to be in the description. Best day to join a Patreon is the beginning of the month. We cooking up today.